Hi guys, this is Sam and welcome to EngLogic, where I help advanced English learners and teachers improve their English by analysing its logical and mathematical patterns. Today we have a grammar game, but before we continue, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel down below and to check out all my grammar and logic videos over here. And now, let's get started. Today's game revolves around these sentences. I've never thought about it so far. He left 2 days ago and so far we haven't heard any news. You must submit your application until Friday. I will work here until my contract will end. You can live here until you want. Walk until the shop and turn left. Where only one is correct. Our challenge is to find the correct one and correct the wrong ones. And as a little experiment, I would like you to pause the video, come up with your own solution and corrections, and then see if they match mine. Quick note before we start. Saying that these sentences are incorrect because they don't sound good is not accurate enough. If you are at the level where you can feel it in your bones that something is not correct, that's amazing because it means that your level is very high. But there is a mathematical and a logical reason why these sentences are wrong, and as non-native speakers of English or as English teachers, it's always very useful to know what this reason is, even if you don't really use it or think about it when you speak. The only grammatically and logically correct sentence is number 2. He left 2 days ago and so far we haven't heard any news. Now we will use different constructions and sentences to understand why the other ones are wrong and how we can correct them. What we mustn't forget is that when we're told that a sentence is wrong, the first fundamental step is to identify where the problem is before even finding the solution, rather than randomly changing things, hoping for a stroke of luck. What sometimes happens with my students when I tell them that the sentence, "I've never thought about it so far," is wrong, they start changing everything they can possibly think of, and they start saying, "I has never thought about it," or "I've never thinked about it," or "I've never thought on it," or "I've never thought about it," instead of "I have," which is not a solution because in this case, I've and I have are exactly the same. And when that happens, it's a very important clue for me as a teacher because I has simply doesn't exist. So when a B1, B2 level student gives me it as a potential option, I understand that they're not thinking because at their level, they should know for a fact that this is impossible. If a student genuinely can't find a mistake, that's absolutely fine because they may simply not know the target grammar topic. But if that's the case, as a teacher, I personally prefer silence to random and blatantly incorrect options because at least I understand that my student is using logic. So my advice to my students is always to hang on tight to what they know for a fact to be correct, and they can use that to find a solution. So far gives us continuity, which is why "he left 2 days ago and so far we haven't heard any news" is correct, meaning that we didn't have any news before now and we still don't have any news. But that is also why number 1 is incorrect. Let's take the sentence, "I've never thought about starting my own business," which is correct, and that means that between the moment that I was born and now, this thought has never crossed my mind. But we logically can't add the words "so far" to this sentence because, as we said, "so far" creates continuity. But the simple fact that I am saying the words "I've never thought about it" means that I didn't think about it before now, but right at this moment I am thinking about it. So instead of continuity, we need something that gives us the idea of change, and this word is "until now." And something else happens. The present perfect, "I have never thought," creates a connection between the past and the present, meaning that the idea of never thinking about it should still be connected to the present somehow. But that is incorrect because if I say "until now," it means that we have a change, and that means that the concept of never thinking about it ended literally 2 seconds ago, so there is no connection. And if we want to remove this connection, we need to transform the present perfect into the past perfect, resulting in the correct sentence, "I hadn't thought about it until now." As a recap, this tells us that the idea of never thinking about it now belongs to the past and it's not connected to the present. Let's remember that until and till can be used perfectly interchangeably, although till is slightly more informal. In order to understand why you must submit your application until Friday is wrong, we're going to analyze two sentences that are technically grammatically correct, but only one is logically possible. The sentences are, I want to get married by the end of June, and I want to get married until the end of June. My question to you is, how many times do you want to get married? By gives us the idea of something happening one single time before a deadline. I want to get married by the end of June means that I want it to happen one single time, any time between now and the end of June. Until, on the other hand, conveys the idea of continuity that ends when the deadline occurs. I want to get married until the end of June means that I want to get married every single day between now and the end of June. So this is mathematically possible, but it is logically very improbable. If you say to me that I must submit my application until Friday, I understand that I have to submit my one same application continuously between now and Friday. So this is logically incorrect. Since I have one application and I have to send it only one time between now and Friday, the correct sentence is, you must submit your application by Friday. Until can also be followed by a verb. I will sleep until the alarm clock goes off means that my activity of sleeping will go on continuously and it will end when it reaches the deadline of the alarm clock going off. This is where we get to the tricky part. We always need to pay attention to the concept that we want to express and the verbs that we need for it. You can submit your application until Friday is correct because can gives the idea of permission. I am telling you that you have permission to send this document anytime between now and Friday. So the idea of my permission extends continuously between now and Friday. As we've just seen, you must submit your application until Friday is logically incorrect because this means that the obligation that I'm giving you extends over time, meaning that you are forced and required to do it continuously. Sometimes both by and until are grammatically and logically correct, but they convey a completely different meaning. If it's 8 o'clock in the morning and your boss tells you you need to talk to the client by the end of the day, it means that you need to do it one time at any random time, let's say for an hour, between now and the end of the day. So you can do it at 10, 1, 3. If, however, your boss tells you that you need to talk to the client until the end of the day, it means that you need to start now at 8 a.m. and you need to continuously talk to them until 5, which is technically possible if the topic that you need to discuss with your client is important and delicate. Careful. Until and until now are used in completely different contexts and convey completely different meanings. Until now gives us the idea of a change in the state of something, whereas until gives us the idea of continuity within a deadline. Now, why is you can live here until you want wrong? We've said that until gives us the idea of continuity that ends when the deadline occurs. But if I say you want, this is not a specific deadline. In this case, we need to use as long as, which gives us the idea that the main action can continue for the whole duration of the action introduced by as long as. And I will try to explain it a little bit better. You can live here for as long as you want, where for is optional, is correct because that means that your permission to live here, which is the main action, will continue for the whole duration of your wanting to be here, which is the part introduced by as long as. When you stop wanting to be here, you can go. She stayed awake for as long as she could means that her action of staying awake lasted for the whole duration of her being able to do it. When she stopped being able to do it, she fell asleep. As long as can be used with a verb. You can live here as long as you want. It can also be used with some adjectives where the words it is are implied. In the morning, I stay in bed as long as possible actually means as long as it is possible. But as long as can't be followed by a noun. You can't say you can stay here as long as the rain. It doesn't exist. You can say you can stay here as long as it rains or it's raining, which is correct but extremely uncommon. We would never say that. We would say you can stay here until it stops raining. And careful, as long as has a lot of different meanings. In this video, we're only analysing the one related to the extension of an action through time. The reason why walk until the shop and turn left is wrong is that until is only used in relation to time. If I want to tell you that you need to reach the shop and turn left, I need to say as far as, which is grammatically correct but extremely uncommon because it's very heavy on our ears. You can say to or up to. But only up to can also refer to quantity. This room can host up to 100 people. We can't say until, to, or as far as. We will now look at very technical concepts as to why I will work here until my contract will end is wrong. Conjunctions such as when, until, after, if, don't have will and use the present simple instead when they introduce a subordinate clause with future meaning connected to a future main clause. In grammar, a clause is a short structure with only one verb. When you called me, one verb, one clause. I was eating pizza, another clause. Technically, was and eating are two verbs, but together they build only one structure, so they count as one clause. A sentence, however, is a full statement containing all the clauses involved. When you called me, I was eating pizza is one full sentence. The main or independent clause is the most important clause in the sentence, which can convey a simple but understandable meaning on its own. I was eating pizza. A subordinate or dependent clause is a clause that doesn't convey an understandable meaning on its own and therefore needs to be connected to another clause. If I say, when you called me, your brain is not satisfied, it needs more information. Whereas if I only say to you, I was eating pizza, I don't really get much of the context, that's true, but my brain is satisfied because at least it can understand more or less what and when happened. I will work here is the main clause with future meaning. The rule says that when, until, if, after, introduce a subordinate clause with future meaning connected to a main clause with future meaning, they can't have will, they only have the simple present. So the correct sentence is, I will work here until my contract ends. That's why we say, when I am 64, I will retire. And careful, because in any English exam that you will sit, they will test you on this constantly, and saying, when I will be 64 is considered a very big mistake. Specifically, the word when can be followed by will, but only in questions when it's an independent clause. When will you call me? Which I understand is about the future. And in indirect questions with the same meaning. I'd like to know when you will call me in the future. In English, we have an extremely common alternative to saying the show starts at 8, which is correct. But what we can say is the show doesn't start until 8, using not plus until. Another possible option is the show doesn't start before 8, however, it's not as common as until. So let's go back to our original challenge, where the correct one is still number 2. He left 2 days ago, and so far we haven't heard any news. And now let's recap the corrections of the other sentences. Number 1 becomes, I've never thought about it until now. Number 3 becomes, you must submit your application by Friday. Number 4 becomes I will work here until my contract ends. Number 5 becomes you can live here for as long as you want. And number 6 becomes walk up to the shop and then turn left. And that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this game and exploring all the little subtleties of English grammar with me. And if you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to my channel down below. And do let me know in the comments what you thought about the sentences and if you got the right solutions straight away. And in the meantime, I will see you next week with my next video.